When you think of a medieval castle, what comes to mind? Probably towering stone walls, right? Impenetrable gates, a fortress that looks like it could stand forever. But what if I told you the weapon that brought these giants crashing down wasn't a catapult or a battering ram? What if the real killer was something you couldn't even see?
I mean, just look at a place like Beaumaris Castle. These things are absolute marvels of engineering. They're built on cliffs, they're surrounded by moats, they've got walls within walls. Every single element was designed to make a direct attack basically a suicide mission. For centuries, this was the absolute peak of defensive technology.
So if you couldn't just smash your way in, how did these fortresses ever actually fall? Well, the answer isn't bigger rocks or taller ladders. To find it, we've got to look at one of the most brutal and intense sieges in all of history.
Okay, so let's travel back to the Siege of Acre. This was a grueling, 2-year-long conflict during the Third Crusade. And this wasn't just any siege, it was the ultimate pressure cooker. And it's here that the castle's real weakness gets exposed.
Okay, try to picture this, because it's wild. You've got the Crusader army outside the city walls, trying to get in. But then, right behind them is Saladin's massive army, trapping the attackers. It's a double siege, a total nightmare scenario where literally everyone was both the hunter and the hunted. And the physical assault was just relentless. The Crusaders hauled in these gigantic stone-throwing machines called trebuchets. And get this, they gave them nicknames like Bad Neighbor and God's Own Thrower. And these things just hurled boulders at the walls day and night. But, as we're about to see, even that incredible firepower wasn't what really mattered.
So to really get why all that firepower wasn't the be-all and end-all, we need to appreciate what it was up against. Let's do a quick breakdown of the classic defensive playbook that a fortress like Acre was using.
First up, the moat. Its job was pretty simple: stop people from getting to the base of the wall. You couldn't just roll a siege tower up to it, and trying to dig a tunnel underneath, yeah, that was a wet, muddy, and pretty much impossible job.
Now, if attackers somehow miraculously made it past the moat and broke through that first wall, they'd often find themselves in an even worse spot: the killing field. This was this open ground between an outer and inner wall, and it was a total death trap. You had defenders on the higher, stronger inner wall just raining down arrows and rocks with nowhere for you to hide.
And of course, by this point in history, the major fortresses were built of stone. Sure, early castles were often wood, which was cheap but, super flammable, but stone became the gold standard. It was fire-resistant, and it could take years of punishment from those siege engines.
You see, a fortress wasn't just a wall. It was a complete defensive system. From where it was built, to its layered walls, to its heavily fortified gates, every single part worked together to create a puzzle that was nearly impossible to solve with just brute force. Almost impossible.
And this is where the story takes a huge turn. Because all those defenses we just talked about, the walls, the moats, the killing fields, they were all designed to stop an enemy you could see. But the biggest threat in a long siege was something you couldn't see at all.
The deadliest weapon wasn't a trebuchet or a sword or an arrow. It wasn't something you could watch out for. It was already inside the walls. And, for that matter, it was outside in the besieging army's camp too.
And how do we know this? Well, it's thanks to research from places like the Democratic Arabic Center. By digging into historical accounts of sieges, they uncovered the grim reality, this awful pattern that really decided who won and who lost.
The real game changers were almost always biological. You had famine, as food just ran out, and then you had epidemic diseases, plague, cholera, typhus, which absolutely thrived in the crowded, filthy conditions of a besieged city or a massive army camp.
And this is the absolute key. A stone wall could protect a knight better than it could a peasant. But disease? Disease doesn't care about your social status. It just swept through everybody, hitting nobles and soldiers, attackers and defenders, all the same. It was the great equalizer.
So this completely changes how we should be thinking about a siege. It wasn't just a test of military might. It was actually a biological and logistical race against the clock.
This is the crucial point right here. Victory didn't necessarily go to the army with the biggest catapults. It went to the side that could outlast hunger and sickness. A fortress's greatest defense wasn't its stone walls. It was its supply of grain and its source of clean water.
You can just see how this plays out over time. In the first month or two, things seem okay, morale's high. But by month 6, food is running low, sanitation is a disaster, and the population is getting weak. That's when disease grabs hold and just spreads like wildfire. By month 9, the soldiers are often too sick and starved to even lift a sword.
And when you chart it out like this, the real hierarchy of threats becomes crystal clear. Yeah, the danger from siege engines was real, but it was absolutely dwarfed by starvation and disease. These were the true castle breakers.
Now, sure, eventually gunpowder and cannons came along and made these incredible stone walls pretty much obsolete, but that was much later. For hundreds of years, during the golden age of castles, the enemy you really had to worry about wasn't the one trying to get in. It was the hunger and sickness that was already locked inside with you.
It really leaves you with a fascinating question, doesn't it? In that medieval world, what would you rather have? A 50-foot-high wall of solid stone, or a guaranteed 6-month supply of food and clean water? The answer tells you everything you need to know about what real strength and resilience actually meant.